way, where the topics are priceless and the conversation is free. It's the Book Lovers Rendezvous, and the only weekly video program, both on Facebook and YouTube, that's devoted entirely to rare and collectible books and the people who collect, sell, and enjoy them, and that's you. I'm Lee Linn, your host from the Ridge Books in Calhoun, Georgia. Ed Markiewicz, our usual host, is vacationing in Greece and will occasionally send us posts from Greece showing us what he's been doing. And I think we have one for today as well. We're here every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, 5:30 Greenwich Mean Time. We're also available as a podcast wherever you get your podcast as Rare Books Cafe Raw. So join us whenever you can, and be sure to leave a comment saying that you've been with us. This morning we will have at some point one of our regulars, Richard Mori, our road warrior. We think we've located him after being unable to find him for a couple of weeks. David Hess will be with us with Things Found in Old Books. But our main guest today is Mike Glenn. Mike is a collector of African American literature and a longtime friend of mine. Some people know him better as Stinger Glenn from the Atlanta Hawks, basketball player, or their color commentator, or sports commentator, or someone who's very active in community affairs in the Atlanta area. He's won many awards for these activities, both in sports and in community service. He has for 41 years directed a sports camp for deaf children. So he has a really impressive resume. But the Mike that I know is the book collector. And we met at a book fair and discovered that he was not familiar with Roland Hayes, whom we've had conversations on this show about. And so we were able to educate him a little bit. And he may not know how influential he's been in the Ridge business because of his collecting interest. He introduced us to other collectors in the field, and we became very interested in collecting African American material. So, Mike, we are delighted to have you with us today. I know we talked that you were going to talk primarily about your collecting, but also give us a little hint of your new project with the stamps that's coming up. So how did you get it? When did you first start seriously collecting, and what was the impetus that made this such an important part of your life?
Well, thanks very much, Lee. First of all, I certainly am thrilled to be here with you. And yes, you and your late husband, Bob, you all added so much to my collection. And I did learn so much about Roland Hayes and visited you in your shop and learned some more. I got some more books. So thanks very much. But both my parents were educators. So books were always in my household. Mom had quotes on the walls. She was the consummate teacher. But I was never a collector. I was a reader and owner of books and did not even know about first edition books until I wrote my first book, which was Lessons in Success from the NBA's Top Players. And then, Lee, I saw so many quotes. I wanted the books that those quotes came from. I was broadcasting for the Atlanta Hawks, traveling to all the major cities across the country, and I start going in rare and used bookstores. What the pleasure of my life. I
Oh,
didn't know what
yes.
I was getting into, Lee.
Yeah.
But I and learned about book fairs and all kind of things, auctions and everything. So that was in 1997 that I wrote my first book, Lessons in Success from the NBA's Top Players. And then I started collecting all these rare books. And I, like many fans of rare bookstores, to say, I didn't know these books were still in existence. So I started, first
Well,
I started.
I know that you're pretty well known across the country. When I went to uh, a book workshop in Colorado Springs in 2007,
Mhm.
people there knew about you. People,
Wow.
Chris from California was familiar with you, and
Hmm.
I know at book fairs, every dealer can't wait for Mike to get to their booth. Uh, you know, you feel like as a bookseller that certain people are your customers, and we always kind of felt that way about you. But
Mhm.
what I discover at book fairs is that everybody thinks you're their guy too. But book
Mhm.
fairs are a lot of fun, and we hope to get back to them soon.
Mhm.
We hope.
Yes,
Anyway.
indeed.
And now your
Yes,
dad
indeed.
taught at the School for the Deaf, right?
He did. He started Georgia
Yeah,
School for the Deaf, and he started the sports program there. He coached every
right.
sport that they had, Lee. So I learned to play basketball, and I learned deaf culture from my dad, Charles Glenn, who started the program before I was born. So I was kind of
Yeah,
born into the lap of basketball, books, and education.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good combination. That's a good
Mhm,
combination.
mhm,
Um, Tell us a little about the type of books that you look for, um,
mhm.
because I know you have said to me that you like to find books that are success stories.
Yes.
Um, uh, and so tell us a little bit about the kind of books that you look for and what's in your collection.
Okay, it has really expanded beyond my control now, Lee. Like all
I
everybody
know.
probably on this, everybody listening right there participating. But it started with Frederick Douglass. That was my mom's
Hmm.
big hero, and she would always recite him and ask us the quote: "Once he learns how to read, it will forever unfit him to be a slave." And reading was the pathway from slavery to freedom, which is the name of John Hope Franklin's the best book, the most
Right.
important book ever written on African American history and culture in America. And that was my beginning. Slave narratives, Douglas, Tubman, Sojourner, all the slave narratives. And I do like inspirational things, uplifting things, those kinds of books. I give a lot of motivational talks, and I like to have that kind of information coming from a
Hmm.
variety of places. I think mainly it's things that empower people and raise them up and not keep them depressed so they know who they are, what their history was, what they
Hmm.
have been, and what they can be in the future. Those are the things that really inspire me. And that those three autobiographies of Frederick Douglass are my favorite books in my collection, but I love Phyllis Wheatley and thousands of others. So those are the kind of things that I collect. And it has expanded from slave narratives, Harlem Renaissance, civil rights movement, just across the spectrum. And anybody was struggling for justice, equality, and fairness. I was a fan of them. I have books on Eleanor
Right.
Roosevelt, Charles Sumner, Lincoln, obviously. So I have extensive collections on a lot of people.
I know that sometimes we would get a new book in or something, and I'd mention it to you, and it was something you already had, or was somebody you were already familiar with. Uh,
Yes.
uh, yeah, we have been very impressed with the depth of your collection, and I remember, oh gosh, it's been years ago, but a display that you had at the Decatur Library that
Mhm,
had a good bit of sports stuff, and you
mhm,
had
mhm.
some Negro League baseball, and you actually had a baseball player there who
Yes.
did a little talk to the group, but
Mhm.
but I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, Lee,
Um,
that was name was James Red Moore. He played with the Atlanta
okay,
Black Crackers back in the
okay,
1930s, and it's from Booker T.
wow.
Washington High School here in Atlanta. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really well done exhibit. And I
Thank you.
understand you have another exhibit coming up
Hmm.
that will be
Hmm.
available virtually. Tell us about
Absolutely.
that.
Okay, thanks very much, Lee. It is on uh, October is National Stamp Collecting Month, and very few people knew about that. And but I've been kind of collecting stamps all along to kind of go with my book collecting. So I'd have books on various people, and then I would have stamps that showed where the U.S. Postal Service also acknowledged the importance of
Mm-hmm.
these people. And so I found myself collecting them, not with a goal of having a collection per se, just getting things that really complemented the book collection. And that's how I got into newspapers and magazines and
Mm-hmm.
everything after initially being just a book collector. And now in October in Atlanta at the Apex Museum in downtown Atlanta on Auburn Avenue, right next to the King Martin Luther King birth home, etc. I'm going to have a virtual exhibit on stamp collecting. It's American history in stamps. And the same things that we learn in books, we can learn from stamps. Because my first stamp was from 1875, and this particular stamp was Philip Reed had helped to create a Statue of Freedom that went above the Capitol. And on December 2nd of 1863, Lincoln had this statue put atop the Capitol. The Capitol, as you know, had been destroyed a lot from the War of 1812, and he wanted everyone to see it. It was in view from Virginia, which of course was a slave state, and he wanted this statue up there to say that the Union will survive and it will go on. And the fact that it was a Statue of Freedom had a little extra meaning, I think, to it, and that this enslaved person had been very instrumental in creating it, and they created a stamp. U.S. Postal Service did in 1875. Very expensive stamp, I may say, but it's probably the shining star in my stamp collecting exhibit. But there are so many other stamps that tell history. Missouri Compromise stamp, Lincoln Douglas debates. There's so many stamps and things that we can learn, Lee, from stamps, just like we do from books that will inspire us to research and learn more of the real history in America.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been trying here in Calhoun for many years to get a Roland Hayes stamp and have been unsuccessful with that. But that would be a really good addition to this kind of collection. People have made contacts and have tried really hard for years without any success. So, I'm not sure where we're falling short in doing what we're doing, but it is something that folks in Calhoun have felt like is long overdue. If we can have stamps that have cowboy boots on them, why can't we have a Roland Hayes stamp?
I totally agree.
That kind of thing. That kind of thing. So this exhibit will be available online as well.
Yes, impacttickets.com. You can find that. And, I'll have some things on my website, mikeglenn.com, but it will be so that people can get tickets there for $9.99 and actually participate in the live when it's shown on October 17th at 5 o'clock from the Apex Museum on Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, I'm planning to be there. And
love for you.
The first day that we met, I had a friend with me Bob was still teaching and couldn't get off that day. And so my friend Gail came with me. And so you met her, talked to her about Calhoun basketball players and a lot of things like that. And I think she's going to come. I think she's going to come with me.
Wonderful.
We're looking forward to a girls' night out.
Good. So, have 2 seats saved for you in the front.
Okay. Okay. Well, they don't have to be in front, but we are planning to. Anything else going on with you that we ought to hear about? What are your recent acquisitions as far as your collection goes?
Oh, well, I'm always.
Well, I know what one of them is, but.
Yes, indeed. And I think that was a fabulous book that you shared with me. And I already had a signed edition of the book, Robert E. Lee and Me.
Yeah.
And I think that's so significant that he wrote the book, and the introduction is so powerful that he was sharing a transformation he had in his own life. And that's the power of literature and books, as you know, Lee. And that's the thing that I really like, for people to get introduced to something that they didn't know that can transform their lives. I think that was the power of narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass from 1845. It put people right into his shoes and to see a different side of America and what's happening in other people's lives and how you can change that and make it better. And from that, you learn of John Brown and so many other people that played the role of hero in making America what it is, and hopefully what it can continue to grow to be in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And just to remind everybody, Mike's website is mikeglenn.com, and the Apex Museum in Atlanta is where this exhibit will be. And,
Yes.
we'd love, after you finish reading Robert E. Lee and Me, we'd love to hear
Yes.
some comments about that book, because later in the show today, we're going to talk about my book club reactions
Okay.
to it last night.
Excellent. Happy to.
So that should be interesting. But it's so good to see you, and it's good to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Lee. It's been my pleasure.
Okay.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was great to see Mike and to have him with us. And I'm looking forward to going to the Apex Museum on the 17th. And please check into that and check into to his website, and there's always new and interesting material on there. Let's see. I think we have next Things Found in Old Books from David Hess. And today he has found in a 1956 book by Colorado Denver Post columnist Red Fenwick a card announcing his appearance and a humorous business card of his. And then in a 1972 paperback, a photo of a mother and daughter, and finally a letter and 7 1950 happy birthday cards. So, David, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Hello, this is David from the Bookman in Orange, California. Wishing you a good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today. And my segment is Things Found in Old Books. So today I have some books, and I found some things in them. So let's share them with you now. In this book here, called Red Fenwick's West. It's got things in it, but they're taped in. So we'll show you some good pictures of them here. And what in the top card, it says North Platte Valley Associated Chambers of Commerce dinner meeting. And the guest speaker was Red Fenwick. And it cost $1.50 to get in. It started at 6:30. And below that, on this book here, I'm sorry, the dust jacket's coming off. Bear with me. Right down here is Red's business card. And it says Robert W. Red Fenwick, the write-up rounder of the Denver Post. So he was a writer for the Denver Post. And if you lift the card up, it's actually liftable. On the back, it says, specializing in characters, oddballs, dumb friends, evil companions, fine folks, and country humor. And incidentally, legitimate news. So, no, I didn't know much about Red Fenwick. I'd never heard of him. I guess he was a big writer in the 50s. The book is from I'm assuming this is probably when the speech was, 1956. And in the back is this thing called Who's Who in Colorado. So it answered all my questions because old Red is right here. It says he was a newspaper columnist and writer for the Denver Post. He was born in 1909. And there's a list of all his accomplishments or what he used to do. And he was quite prestigious in the Denver area and a regular columnist for the Denver Post. And the other little thing, now at the top up here, it says someone has written their name in it. And it says Sylvia Fenwick. And this guy's name is Red Fenwick. So I'm assuming Sylvia could have been his wife, maybe his daughter, but there you go. It was, I'm supposing, in the Fenwick family. Moving along here in this book called The Pilgrim's Progress, the book came out in 1972 with this edition. Pilgrim Progress is a timeless classic. This edition came out in 72. I found this little picture. It looks like from that era, the 72 era. It has that kind of look, that faded color look of those 70 photographs have been sitting around a long time. And it shows a mom and possibly your daughter I don't know what the relationship is. There's nothing written on the back. There's no date. It's just a random picture. These are the kind of pictures that I find in old books. And I always get a kick out of them. It's a little piece of time. You look at them, you try to figure out what the heck's going on. But it looks like she's proud of her little daughter for something. And they're smiling for the camera. Very nice. And in this book here, Confessions of St. Augustine, I found a lot of stuff. There's a lot to unpack here. Now, this particular edition of the Confessions of St. Augustine came out in 1948. Again, another timeless classic, but the 48 edition. I found a whole treasure trove of birthday cards and a letter. So, the letter, it was to addressed to somebody in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Excuse me. Not very good at that. And it doesn't have any return address, so I'm not sure exactly where it came from. It says Troy, New York. Right there, the postal stamp. Came from Troy, New York. Now, my guess is that the gentleman who received the letter now lives in Wisconsin, but at one time he lived in Troy, and I think he had moved recently. By the time this letter said, it's dated July 20th, 1950. And it's actually from the father of his local parish had sent him a nice letter wishing him well in his new digs there in Wisconsin. And along the way, he sent a little 1950s era in Mary's hand, a little prayer card. And on the back, it says, to Ruth, Our Lady watches over all your family, Father, and I can't read the guy's last name. My apologies. Father's something, July 5th. And so that was a nice little card, little letter. So the guy moved. But in the meantime, he had a birthday. And there are, what's interesting about this, the cards is to get a good idea of what 1950 birthday cards look like. Good luck in your new home. Well, this is for moving, so that's that one. And this is a little see-through birthday card. It says happy birthday, and you open it up, and there's the cake being eaten. So there's that. Here we got, and they're dated 1950. And there's a little cute kitten card. Happy birthday, sweetheart. And though we may have had some troubles and we have had some scraps, I love you plenty, honey, and I sure don't mean perhaps. So, good. For you, Dad, on your birthday, very sedate looking, business-like. And here you go. For you, another birthday card. Again, I really enjoy this vintage card look, from way different style and sentiments than the cards that we have today, which is to be expected. Birthday greetings from the both of us. A couple little angels hugging. Yeah, that's cute. And finally, this birthday card, birthday greetings. And now, I don't know if it was handmade or not, but if it was store-bought, it's pretty simple in its making. It's a piece of cardboard or a piece of construction paper with a card on it. But it is printed, so it was probably store-bought, and there's a sentiment inside. Again, dated 1950. So he saved all his birthday cards, put them in this book here. And it's just amazing that they sat in this book since 1950, 70 years ago, and just never moved from there. And finally, it ended up on my shelf here in the Bookman, or soon to be on my shelf in the Bookman, and I get to share them with you now. So his birthday cards gets to be celebrated one more time. That's all I have for today, and thank you for joining me. If you have anything that you would like to share, please feel free to send me a photograph and a little blurb about what you found and where you found it, and I would love to share it here on the show. And you can send them to me at oldbook@ebookman.com. That's oldbook@ebookman.com. And I will be more than happy to share them. I look forward to it. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you next week. This is David Hess in Orange, California, wishing you a good day.
For several weeks now, we've been playing Where's Richard? I think we're going to have to put a tracker on his phone so we can keep up with him. But Alan tells me that he's finally located him. I'm not sure where he is, but we have him with us. Good morning, Richard, or good afternoon.
Well, good morning, Lee. Actually, I guess it is afternoon, isn't it? I've lost track of that.
Yeah.
Well, I am back in New Hampshire, but you are right. I have been kind of wayward, and I was supposed to try to be there last week, and I apologized to Alan and begged for my job back and paid the great pay I've been getting. I wanted to get that back in, so that the check would hit my account every week.
Yeah,
like
we have some questions about those checks. we have some questions about those checks.
But I am back, and I have got an amazing little story. Life's little twists in this business always amaze me. So I actually have been in Florida visiting a friend and doing some business, and it was an unscheduled trip, but we made it, and I was glad to do it and loved it. And I came back with some really wonderful books from New England, of all places. Go figure, right? Oh. So in fact, I come back to New England, and I'd been contacted this summer by a gentleman from Jacksonville, Florida. And this is part of the story you're going to really find fascinating. He calls me this summer, and he says, "You don't remember me, but we met in 2001. That is correct, 2001, at the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair." He says, "And I want to sell you my books." I said, "Okay." So over the course of the summer, we went back and forth, and he was coming up to New England. So he says, "I'm going to bring you the books." Well, this week, he actually finally connected with me after a couple false starts. And in fact, he brought me his books. And guess what most of the subject matter is from? Florida and Georgia. So I had in New England, I'm buying Florida and Georgia material plus some
Georgia.
Civil War things.
Oh gosh, I need to look at that Georgia stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And in Florida, I'm buying New England books.
Buying New England.
Figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go figure.
I bought some good Georgia stuff out in Colorado one time.
Yeah. It's just the way this business works sometimes.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating. So let me start with the New England stuff, because this is really, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I have sent Alan some pictures, but I wanted to show you. I put them in this nice little box, and I'm going to pull one out here in a minute, but I just want people to see. There are 10 volumes here, and these are Thornton Burgess books. These are the ones he did after he did the Mother West Wind series. He also wrote some other books, and these are actually I forget. Actually, they have a name. I think that is this the bedtime story? The Green Forest series is what they're called. 10 of them. I never find this. This is the set that I bought in Florida. And they're just wonderful, beautiful covers to them. A few of them are first editions. They're and these are thick. They're not the thin ones like he did with the bedtime stories. And you very seldom see them complete in the 10 volumes. I've had many of these over the years individually. They did come with dust jackets. The dust jackets are extremely scarce now. Wonderful, wonderful pieces. And the other thing, and I got to send Alan a picture of this because I haven't done that, is I came up with this little gem. in the Florida trip. This is a Beatrice Potter book, and you will recognize the characters. Okay. So
yes.
this one is entitled Miss Moppet. It's got these beautiful illustrations, and this is an accordion fold. It is reproduced later on in a book format, but you see how it keeps unfolding.
Yeah.
And it keeps it's longer than I can reach, to be honest, so I'm not going to undo it all. But it's just a wonderful piece, and it comes in a little pouch like this that opens up like this, and then you get the book. It's actually
like
one of
kind of like a lot of the postcard view books.
That's correct.
Yeah, that
yeah
open that way and have a little cover to them that are.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of Lookout Mountain ones like that.
Yeah, I know there are two in this series because I've had them in the past and I sold them. God, it was over 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago when I had them. These are among the scarcest of the Beatrice Potter material to find, primarily because they were so delicate, and they were easily destroyed and lost. And this is not the best of examples. The ones I had 25 years ago were really just gorgeous. But this, if you look online, you'll discover the ones online aren't so hot either. But this is a nice, and those came from my Florida trip. So you say now I'm back in New Hampshire, and this weekend that I end up buying the books from Florida. So among them, there was this treasure. Nice copy in the dust jacket. And these are not necessarily what I'd call valuable books in terms of price, but they are, I think they're less common. I know Mike Slicker, if you go to his shop, he probably has duplicates of everything I'm going to show you.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But these are, for me, these are just nice little pieces I can bring down to Florida with me. I've already started my Florida box for this trip. This is Exiles, I think it's called, Exiles of Florida.
Exiles of Florida.
Yeah. This is
I like that book. Yeah,
this is 1858. I'm not an expert on Florida books, but I think 1858 is going to be a fairly early imprint.
Yeah, I think it's more like I was going to say 1852, but I'm not sure.
Let me just double check. It doesn't suggest that here, and I did actually look this. This is a first. I checked it yesterday. It is a first, 1858 by Joshua Giddings, published out of Columbus, Ohio. Interesting enough, beautiful frontispiece actually. Nice little frontispiece. So that was a sweet little find in the lot. Then there's the. This one needs a little love and care. The Conquest of Florida. This is 1851. Again, they're very early in print with the map.
Is that the DeSoto? Is that the
DeSoto?
Irving?
Yeah. Hernando.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry. Theodore Irving. Yeah, I was reading.
That's Irving. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, Theodore Irving. Very good. And it says complete in one volume, 1851, published in New York.
Okay, but the first was in 2 volumes.
I think you're right on that because this is the first revised. Actually, the first revised.
Yeah. The first edition was 2 volumes.
Yeah. Yep. And this one just is a lovely cover. I just love this cover.
Oh, that is nice.
Isn't it? And the gilt is really sharp and strong in this. The cloth, just a little bit of dirt, but not serious. Nice cover. Not an expensive book again by any stretch of the means. But for me, it's a nice one that I can bring to Florida.
Right.
When I do. And I do some other things in Florida before the Antiquarian Book Fair, so I may or may not have them before I get to the Antiquarian Book Fair. But in the Georgia material, I'll save that for another time and show you. But there's
Oh,
a whole box of Georgia stuff.
oh,
Much of it related to the Civil War period. So I think you'll enjoy that. But I did pick up two other pieces in this group that were really exciting, and this is actually probably of this group. Was the best of the books. This is a pro-slavery piece.
yeah, I have seen that
Yeah,
book.
it's titled "Cotton is King."
Cotton is King.
and
Yeah.
yeah, pro-slavery arguments comprising the writings of Hammond, Harper, Christie, Stringfellow, Hodge, Bledsoe, and Cartwright on the important subject, and it is by E.N. Eliot, published 1860 out of Augusta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a fairly well-known Georgia imprint. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess not too common. I think I found only one or two maybe online that are not in good condition. So I think that's a good piece. And the other one that kind of goes with it, I'm going to show you the cover first because the cover is so bright and clean. This is
yeah.
on the slave trade. This I think is a well-known by Theodore Jervey. I don't know if that's the dust. What's nice of
copy,
this book?
Nice looking copy.
Oh yeah, it's a gorgeous copy in fine condition. Really nice. So those were that. And then lo and behold, yesterday I had this gentleman I bought the books from. We went out to lunch in locally, and it's an antique store that has a nice old-fashioned soda fountain counter, and they serve food there in soda fountain drinks. So we went in, stopped and had lunch, and he was sitting at the counter doing some work, and somebody came in to sell him some things, and lo and behold, he turns to me at some point. He says, "Richard, what do you think of these two books?" And so I gave him my opinion, and he ended up buying them. And when the person's left, I ended up buying them from him. So let me show you. This is just, as you can see, kind of big. This is a 2-volume. There it is. Let me get this straight here. This is 2 volumes of. This is so hard to do. Let me get. I'm looking at a camera and I have to do it backwards. Yes, thank you. Okay. So this is 2 volumes. It's the complete body of heraldry, published in 1780. It's just a gorgeous piece. I sent Alan a couple pictures, and I'm sure he'll put them up. So I'm not going to thumb through this because it's so big and awkward. But it's a wonderful piece. One of the boards is disbound, but even with that, it's got some wonderful, wonderful engravings in it on the different shields and herald crests from different families. Primarily, you'd call it a genealogy piece today, but just a wonderful piece, not something we usually see. It's published in England, so not something we see here frequently. So that's kind of been and there's lots more, but we won't bore everybody with all of it today.
I'll look forward to seeing the Georgia books.
All right. Well, we'll make a special.
When do you have a show? When do you have a show?
I'm actually. So I'm going to Allentown, Pennsylvania this weekend. Okay. It's the Allentown Paper Show, wonderful show. I heard that I think he's pretty much all sold out, which means he's got probably close to 200 dealers on the floor.
Wow.
It's a big show. It has a long history, and most of us in the trade are very familiar with it and love it. And there's a lot of activity among the dealers on this floor, and then of course the buying public as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. Should be a wonderful event. And then later on, I will be coming. Yeah, I'll be coming to Georgia this winter. So I'll be at Scott's probably at least once, maybe twice during the winter.
Okay. Well, let me know. I'll come see you.
Okay, that'll be great.
It's not that far,
Yeah. What is it, about an hour and a half?
Yeah, hour and a half down to Scott's. Yeah.
Yeah.
About an hour and a half. Yeah. That would be fun.
Well,
Well, great. Well, we'll look forward to keeping up with you again, and maybe we won't have to put that tracker on you yet. And we'll look forward to maybe seeing you next
well,
week. All right, get a
I'll
report
always
from Allentown.
I'll always tell you where I am and where I've been. Thank you,
Okay,
Lee.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye bye.
Well, it's always
Yeah,
fun to
that
hear
was
from Richard. Looks like he had has had a really good week. Some interesting books there. The Calhoun Fourth Sunday Book Club had its regular monthly meeting last night, and we discussed Ty Sedgley's book, Robert E. Lee and Me. Do we have a picture of Robert E. Lee and Me to show? Maybe. Anyway, Sedgley was a 30-year veteran of the U.S. Army. He went to West Point. He taught history at West Point, but he was raised in the South. He was a devoted fan of Robert E. Lee as a boy. He grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, and then his father, who taught sports and who was a coach in some of the 1970s segregation academies that sprung up all over the South. He lived in both in Monroe, Georgia, and Social Circle, Georgia, when his dad was teaching. He graduated from one of these, and his goal was to go to Washington and Lee University to become a Southern gentleman. And he was, I think, like many Southerners, saw Robert E. Lee, even in loss, as the greatest general ever, the greatest gentleman ever. He took on almost a saint-like aura. And I think this was true for a lot of Southerners who felt that way about Lee. You know, things have been changing. And after a lot of soul searching and a lot of research, just an amazing amount of research, Sedgley has come to the conclusion, which our book club felt was the correct one, that in going against his oath, moral implications aside, that going against his oath to the United States government through the Army, when he took the oath, when he joined the Army, that he was a traitor to the United States and actively engaged in war against this country that he had taken an oath to. He also brought up a lot of information about Lee's comments, particularly after the Civil War, concerning slavery, that he was still a supporter of it, like many of the Confederates. For example, General Jubal Early, who was kind of on the lecture trail supporting it, and Lee, went so far as to letters to his son, who had African American workers on his farm, talking about how they could never be properly integrated into the society and that it was an inferior race, and the difficulties that his son would have in using those workers. And a whole different side of Robert E. Lee that a lot of us grew up seeing. Certainly that was true in Alabama, though, I don't recall having quite the hero worship that Sedgley did as a boy, because he thought Robert E. Lee was just, the greatest thing ever. The book club felt very strongly that Sedgley was right. There was some arguing about some of his conclusions and the way he saw some things. And for example, people said, well, he didn't call plantations. Sedgley did. He called them slave labor farms. And yet the term plantation is used for, farms other than ones that relied on slave labor. But the general feeling was that he was correct in his assessment of Lee. we had an interesting meeting. A lot of us told about our experiences, with monuments and battlefields and things like that as we were growing up. And, we took our boys on a extended trip to trace the 21st Georgia Regiment that involved going to Manassas and Antietam and then up to Gettysburg and Fredericksburg and Petersburg. And we did the whole thing at Washington and Lee. We were in the chapel with the recumbent Lee statue that really and truly looks like an altar, to a saint or something in that chapel, to the museum in the basement. I think Little Sorrel, Stonewall Jackson's horse, was out for repairs, but and we went to VMI, Virginia Military Institute, and to Newmarket, where there is this elaborate museum to the boys from VMI who fought so bravely on the side of the Confederacy at Newmarket. Though I think a lot of Southerners probably grew up thinking, buying into the states' rights idea. This wasn't about slavery. This was about the right of states to do what they wanted to, this kind of thing. But this is a real eye-opening book and one that we recommend very highly. And several of us said that if we were redoing our favorites list, this would probably show up on there. I know it would on mine. But we had a good meeting. I have a couple of pictures from the meeting. As usual, we had quite a delicious spread as people brought food. I think we have a picture of a couple of pictures of the food. There we go. Kathy and Ken were our hosts this week. And let's see, we have one more food-related picture. Mignon looks a little surprised that I got her picture. But several book club members complained that the last pictures I showed of the book club meeting were not very flattering. So we decided to do a group pictures where everybody could be smiling. And I think the results were a lot better than some of the pictures I took last time. So this is our book club, or at least, well, counting me, there were 10 of us there last night. But it was a good group. We have a few who have not been comfortable in getting in group situations yet, and hope will be able to join us before long. But this was the book club last night. And our next book, which will be the fourth Sunday in October, is Nomadland. Janice, who had worked as a volunteer at Yellowstone, has a friend who participated, who lived in that culture, going from job to job in a van, working for minimum wage wherever she could get a job, and not having a fixed home, but living as a nomad. And so Janice really can give us some firsthand, information on her friend's life. But we'll look forward to having you join us for that in late October. So we passed out the list of favorites last night, and some people were looking at it and saying, "Oh, I wish I'd put that on my list. I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that." But I think the consensus was that people liked a wide variety of things, and have enjoyed a great deal of the things that we have read in book club, and then have not been shy to say the ones they didn't like either. So that's the book club report for this week. Well, as y'all know, Ed is traveling. He's in Greece, and last week we had a report from him on Hadrian's Library, and this week he is in Delphi. We think he may be practicing his skills as an oracle, but he also is going to read to us Keats' Ode to a Grecian Urn, and we're looking forward to these really nice posts from Ed on his trip. So right now we're going to turn to our own Delphi Oracle, Ed Markiewicz.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's installment of Travels with Ed. All due respect to John Steinbeck. This week I happen to be in one of the oldest and most well-preserved archaeological sites in the world, certainly in Greece, the Oracle of Delphi. Right now, standing here in the midst of the ruins, let me give you a quick tour of what's around us. Over here, to the far right, is the theater, not to be confused with the stadium where they held Olympic events. As you scan across the panorama, one of the first standouts you'll see, all of those columns in the background, are the Temple of Apollo. That is the temple where the actual worship of the god Apollo was. Around the temple, the ruins you see are from 27 treasuries of city-states in the area, both Greece and Asia Minor. The treasury is where they kept the offerings to Apollo. Off into the background, you can see the remnants of the gymnasium where the athletes worked and took their baths, and just a little bit past the gymnasium is the Temple of Athena. So it was really Apollo that they worshipped here on the site. Now, when you think about Greek literature and historic Greek stories, certainly the first one that comes to mind is Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. The second one that came to mind for me was Ode to a Grecian Urn by John Keats. John Keats was born in 1795. He was in the second round of the Romantic poets, a peer to Lord Byron, one of the youngest poets at the time, and died at a tragically young age of 25 years old. Born outside of London, nobody knows exactly for sure where. His father died when he fell from a horse and cracked his skull. His mother died from consumption, likely tuberculosis, while he was still in his late teens. Keats had intended to become a physician and went off to college to learn the study of medicine, but did not take to it as well. He really loved writing, he really loved poetry, he really loved the romance of it, and continued to write on the side. In 1816, he became, and a few years before, while still working in the field of medicine, he became enchanted with the traditional form of the sonnet and tried to explore something different. This is one of the first sonnets, Ode to a Grecian Urn, that many of us learned in middle school. What he came up with was a format ABAB, CDE, CED, the letters being the rhyming words at the end of each line. Ode to a Grecian Urn is 5 stanzas long, of 10 stanzas each, with a total of 50 stanzas. The poem begins with him addressing the urn as an inanimate object. It was an urn he saw in a museum in London. And on the urn were a picture engraved of a man and a woman attempting to kiss each other. But they were frozen in time, never aging and never able to fulfill that blissful moment. In the middle portion of the poem, he discusses the thoughts that were going on in the people's minds. He discusses the animation of the urn and philosophy in general, and finally finishes up with one of the most memorable lines of all poetry: beauty is truth, and truth is beauty. In the early 20s, Keats had to care for one of his younger brothers who also had consumption. After his brother died, he went off to Rome and hung out on the Spanish steps with a fellow poet, Lord Byron. And it was there that he found his eternal resting place. He was concerned that he would never have the body of work that some of his peers did, and he asked for the following quote to be placed on his tombstone. Here lies one whose name is writ in water. What a thoughtful quote for a man whose name actually lives on, probably longer than any of ours. And now, an ode to a Grecian urn. Ode to a Grecian Urn by John Keats. Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme, what leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals, or of both? In Tempe or the dales of Arcady, what men or gods are these? What maidens loath? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore ye soft pipes play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared. Pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth, beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss, thou winning near the goal. Yet do not grieve, she cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. Ah, happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring adieu. And happy melodist unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love, forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever panting and forever young, all breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadest thou that heifer lowing at the skies, in all her silken flanks with garland dressed? What little town by river or seashore, or mountain built with peaceful citadel, is emptied of this folk this pious morn? And, little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate and can e'er return. O Attic shape, fair attitude with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought with forest branches and the trodden weed, thou, silent form, dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity. Cold pastoral, when old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye need know on earth, and all ye need to know.
Thank you, Ed. That was an appropriate ending to this show, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again next week. And we'll look forward to seeing all of you next week. Watch us on Friday for a preview of the Saturday show, and then join us on Saturday. So goodbye to everyone, and we'll see you next week.